everybody, Laura Hunter from Drop the Leash, and I'm here today to talk about nail trims in particular and fear in our dogs in general. I'm hoping that everybody who's watched this is watching now has had a chance to practice some of the steps in the videos, and excuse me. Yeah, we're good. Sorry. And that you've made some progress with your dogs. So what I'd like to do today is talk a little bit about why dogs are so afraid of getting their nails trimmed, and hopefully give everybody a little bit more understanding of why the whole process is so hard for them. So you know, we all take our dogs to puppy class, and you know, when we go to puppy class, everybody says to us, you know, let's do some body handling, and let's you know, pick up the puppy's paw, let's touch it with the nail clippers, that's great, super job. And then we all go home, and either we forget about it, or we think that totally accomplished, you know, the whole process of having our dogs, you know, be happy with having their feet handled and having their toes clipped. But that's not enough. So what happens is a few months later, you know, we think, oh my gosh, gotta trim the dog's nails. And so chances are we all, you know, get our dog, you know, with us, and we walk over with a piece of equipment, and we pick up their foot and we hang onto their foot, and we're going to trim those nails. We don't really know what we're doing because we're just doing this out of the blue. So, you know, we might cut them too short. It might be a bad experience for the dog. The dog might get justifiably alarmed about the whole thing and start wiggling. So we might have to hold them tight and trap them. You know, there's a lot of things there that can scare our dogs. You know, first of all, we've got something new. So, you know, maybe your dog hasn't been near clippers in a few months, or even a Dremel, and we're going to approach our dog with this piece of equipment. Well, just to give you some human perspective on that, think about sitting in your doctor's office, you've gone to see him, you know, maybe you've got like a sore knee or something, and you know, he walks in the office and he's got this tool in his hand that you've never seen. He said, can you just sit there, and I'm going to use this on your knee right now, so just sit there, hold tight. You're going to be nervous about what's going to happen. Your dog is going to be nervous about what's going to happen. So right away, the whole new piece of equipment is going to be a little scary. And what a lot of people don't realize is that new experiences are really scary for dogs. Our dogs are actually genetically encoded to default to fear in new situations. You know, before we domesticated them and they were out, you know, out in the world as natural animals, out in the natural world, if they weren't a little bit worried when they saw something new and unfamiliar, they could have been injured, they could have died. You know, if you're not afraid of something new, it could eat you. So they are genetically disposed to be afraid of all new situations, all new experiences, any new objects. So this is scary. The second thing that is really scary for dogs is restraint. Because if you restrain a dog, you are taking all of their options for survival and safety away. Again, we're going back to that genetic encoding. You know, people think, well, you know, I taught my dog to shake a paw, and you know, we picked up their paw in, you know, puppy class, and they were okay with it. But when you pick up your dog's foot to do nail trims, you are restraining their foot. And especially if you have an anxiety-ridden dog, the one I've been working with in the video is a very anxious dog, Maddie. And so to take away any control from her, to take away her ability to move to you know, a distance where she can be safe is really anxiety, you know, inducing for her. You know, the other you know, I have another dog. A lot of people are very familiar with my other dog, Rosie. She's demo dog in all our classes. You know, people see her in the classes. She's super confident dog, loves everybody, will climb right up, you know, on your shoulders, will sit in your lap. But if you pick up her paw, she will do everything in her power to get away. So even confident dogs have problems with restraint. And restraint is a serious issue because we want our dogs to have a good experience. So, you know, even if the first time you clipped your dog's nails, it wasn't a really horrific experience, when you keep repeating that less than great experience over and over again, especially if it brings anxiety to your dog, it's not going to get better. You're going to start, you know, if it was us, if we were, you know, every time we went, well, let's pick a dentist. Every time we went to a dentist, we had a bad experience. It wasn't horrific, but it wasn't great. We're going to start to get stressed about going to the dentist again. It doesn't have to be a really bad experience to make us worried the next time. So they're not going to have a great experience. B, we're going to find that we get really stressed after a while wrestling with our dogs. So now we're anxiety ridden and the dogs are anxiety ridden. And because frightened dogs only have two choices, which is flight or fight, at some point you may be restraining your dog, so you've taken the flight option away, and all they've got left is fight, and dogs have, you know, sharp teeth, so you might get bitten. So, and we want to avoid that. You know, there is a good reason why vets often ask dogs to be muzzled at you know, when they're at the offices. Vets understand that restrained dogs can be very afraid and can fight, you know, for their safety. So lots of reasons why your dogs can be afraid of the whole process. And you know, it's not that difficult for us to get to a positive state with this whole thing. I know I have with my dogs. And so what I'm going to do right now is we're going to go through this and take a look at each step of the process. So again, we'll go back to the clippers, and people say, well, you know, why do I have to worry about my dog being afraid of the clippers? It's a neutral item. Or the Dremel, it's a neutral item. But if there's a past history, this neutral item has predicted a not so great experience. So that makes this neutral item a predictor of something that's not great. They're not going to have a positive response to this as well. And this whole process is about teaching your dog that they can have a positive emotional response to having their nails clipped, that having their nails clipped can be a good experience. So the first thing we have to do is we have to condition them to the tools, and that's why the first videos I put up have been about the Dremel and the clippers. And you know, it can be any tool. The thing about this whole process is that you can use it for everything. It's the same process. Counter conditioning your dog is the same process. So I have other tools here as well. I have scissors. I have a nail file. My dogs have been conditioned to be okay with all of that. You know, it's a great thing to condition your dog to wear a muzzle. So when they go to the vet, they're happy to wear a muzzle. My dogs are muzzle trained as well. So, you know, this process is going to help in other areas as well. So after we finish conditioning our dog to the clippers, the next thing we want to look at is that body handling and that restraint. And again, people say, well, I'm just picking up their paw, I'm holding their paw, you know, what can be so scary about that? Again, you know, human analogy, if your doctor walked into the office with the strange looking tool that you had never seen before and proceeded to pin you to the table and say, hang on, I'm just going to use this, you'd be pretty anxiety ridden about that as well. Restraint is huge in dogs. It does take away all autonomy. Now in dog world, certainly in animal husbandry, there's two fairly new concepts called consent and choice. Not new to us particularly, but a lot of people have never considered that in dog world. So we would like our dogs to have the choice of participating in the process and to be able to give consent or not. If we condition them properly and we take our time, your dog will give consent to this. So you won't have to wrestle them to the ground, pin them to the floor, put their leg under your elbow and hold their paw while you're trying to do this. It is a good thing to have a dog that's a willing participant, because it's just going to get easier and easier as you go through the whole process. So you don't want to drag your dog over on a leash. You want your dog to participate. So my dogs know how to give a paw, but this is a different context, and I always wait for them to offer that paw before I try and do any sort of work with their feet. So that's an important thing as well. As regards the actual trimming of the feet, I'm not going to address that today, other than to say if people are not too sure as to whether they want to do clippers or Dremels, I've used clippers for a long time. I find clippers a little bit nerve-wracking, especially if your dogs have a lot of those black toes and you can't tell how short, you can't see the quick. I'm switching to Dremels, and I'm finding I like them better because I just have to take a little bit off at a time, and I'm finding my dogs are actually faster to condition to a Dremel than they are to clippers. Maybe it's because I'm less anxiety ridden, I don't know. Maybe it's because we've done lots of conditioning. Again, I'm not sure. That reminds me, there's a question that comes up all the time when I'm talking to people about nail trims, because it is a little discouraging for people, and a lot of people think, well, maybe it's me that is causing my dogs to be afraid. Certainly if we have anxiety, our dogs can pick up on it. But a lot of dogs go to the groomers and they're perfectly fine at the groomers. And certainly that could be one factor as to why they're not so good at home, why they're great at the groomers. But I'm going to give you an example of something that happened to my dog Maddie, I guess about 8 weeks ago. I had to, again, she's the anxiety-ridden one. She does not do well with any new experiences, new locations, and her biggest fear in life is other dogs. So she is very, very reactive to other dogs. So I had to take her to the emergency clinic. We're not going to talk about why, but I took her in. Fortunately, there were not many people there, and I said to them, they said, we have to take her in the back. And I said, well, she's extremely dog reactive. I just want to let you know. So she was in the back for about probably a good 45 minutes. They had to do a couple of minor procedures on her. And she came back, they brought her back, and they said, well, you must be really mistaken, because she was back there with other dogs and she didn't react to them at all. She's absolutely fine with other dogs. And fortunately, I'm a trainer and I understood what was happening. Often when our dogs go to vets or groomers or to other people, they can be put into scary situations that they have they don't see any hope of escaping from those situations. So what they do instead is they just shut down. It's called flooding. And your dog can be overwhelmed because, well, in Maddie's case, the other dogs could have been so close to her she couldn't deal with it. She couldn't get away from it, so her only escape was to shut down emotionally. So, to answer the question why are dogs always great at groomers, but they're terrified of getting their nails cut at home. And I'm not dissing groomers in any way. Groomers are great. They do a lot of dogs' nails really well for us. But that could be one of the answers. And it can also be the answer in your house as well. So if you force a dog into a situation where they're afraid and they cannot get out of that situation, often they can shut down. shut down, learned helplessness, flooding, all the same, different terms for the same thing, your dog can look like they're absolutely fine, but they're as far from fine as they can possibly be. So that's a good thing for everybody to know as well, in these type of situations. So back on topic again. So we've gone through the clippers. I'm going to put up videos. The next few videos we put up are going to be about getting your dog conditioned to restraint. But and then we're going to move on, hopefully, to adding the Dremel. We're going to go in small steps. And so the videos will be up, and I'm going to release them a bit at a time so people don't jump ahead, because one of the biggest problems, people come back to me and say, this is not working. And so I want to talk about why sometimes these things don't work. And the first thing that happens is that sometimes, and we talked about this in our first video, but I'm going to remind everybody again, is that the food can overshadow the whole experience. So, if you bring your high value food out, and it has to be super high value, you want this to be special, super high value food, save it for this event, it'll have an impact, trust me on this. But if you bring your super high value food out, chop it up on the counter, and your dog's sitting in the kitchen, and then you plunk it down here on the table, your dog is going to be totally engaged with that food. To bring your clippers out is backwards conditioning at this point, because the food is such a big event for your dog that the food has just predicted the scary trigger, and we don't want that to happen. So what I do is I prepare my food long ahead of time. And actually, I do a lot of conditioning with Maddie here in the kitchen. So now it's just automatic for me to pull a bowl of the high value treats out. And I'm often working on my computer here throughout the day, and that bowl just sits on the desk here for hours on end. And Maddie pays no attention to it anymore. So it is no longer the big event that comes first for her. I can pick up the Dremel, turn it on, she comes to see the Dremel, and then I deliver the food. So you have to make sure that your food is no way noticeable when you start the process. So that's mistake number one that a lot of people make. Number two, again, we go back to choice and consent, is that you have to work at the level at which your dog is comfortable, all right? If your dog indicates to you that they are not comfortable with the process, that maybe I've got my Dremel out, but my Dremel is too close. I think we had a video yesterday where Maddie backed away from the Dremel because it was too close. So that's too intense for her. She couldn't deal with it. So I need to take that away. I need to make it as comfortable as possible for her so that she can deal with it emotionally. So don't go too quickly with this. Don't try and overwhelm your dog. Do not try and use food to coerce your dog. Certainly in dog training, we use position feeding a lot when we're teaching skills, but this is not a place where we want to try and, if I had the Dremel here and I had the food, to try and entice my dog towards the Dremel with the food. A human analogy for that would be somebody who's really afraid of snakes, and there could be another person standing there with a snake, and they're going to say, well, here's the snake. If you come over here, in my other hand I have a $50 bill. If you want to come over closer to this snake, I'll let you have this $50 bill. And win-win situation. It's not a win-win at all, because it sets up a whole emotional conflict in your dog. And even you would be thinking, oh my God, I could really use $50 right now, but I have to go near the snake. So nobody's going to come out of a choice like that. It isn't really a choice, but nobody's going to come out of a pressure like that, feeling good about their choices or about themselves. So you don't want to coerce or force your dog into any of this. It has to be their choice to move forward, their choice to feel good about it. The only thing that you're looking for is that positive emotional response. So if you get that positive emotional response from your dog, and you'll definitely see it in the video I put up this morning. I turned the Dremel on and Maddie came running, and when she got here, she looked at the Dremel, she looked at me as if to say, wow, the Dremel predicts food, where's my food? So that's what you're looking for. If you see your dog back away, if you see your dog throwing off stress signals like licking their noses, turning their head, leaning back, flattening their ears. There's a good one, I think, in somewhere in the Games That Train, in one of the videos. It's actually a post in Games That Train. We took a picture of Celeste's dog, Gimli. You could see the whites of his eyes. That's called whale eye. That's a stress signal as well. I actually think you could see the whale eye and the nose licking. Any of those signals, that is your cue to move the trigger further away, drop the intensity of the situation down, move back to a previous step until your dog is comfortable there again, and just maybe move forward in smaller increments. The dog has to feel good about it all the time. If you put the dog in a situation where they are stressed or not comfortable, you're actually undermining your whole process. And this seems like a complicated process. I'm offering you a lot of information here. I'm talking about a lot of tiny parameters. But once you start doing this, it actually falls into place, and it's not difficult to do. It's not that time consuming either. We're all stuck at home. We don't have a lot of other things to do. This is the perfect time to be doing this. And you want to just do this randomly a couple of times a day. So yesterday I put up the video of Maddie backing away from the Dremel. I did two 2-minute sessions with her last night, and the video I put up today was a dog who was under the table, heard the Dremel, and came running to see the Dremel. So it's not a complicated long-term process if you do it right. And you can do it once or twice a day. 2 or 3 times would be great, but a total 6 minutes out of your day, it's not a lot of time. The one thing that I want to stress is that the slower you move on this, the slower that you sort of move through the process, the faster your dog is going to start to feel good about it. You're going to get those emotional responses a lot faster if you break this down into small, tiny steps. So don't rush it. It's hard because we're not patient. We want our dog to get there, and the fact that you're just conditioning your dog at a distance to look at a pair of clippers, might seem like it's going to take forever, but it's pretty quick. It's pretty quick as long as you don't stress your dog out. So super important to work at their level. Do it randomly throughout the day. And again, you don't have to do lots and lots of repetitions. That's actually going to send you backwards. You'll notice in all the videos that after I've done sort of one repetition, I go off, or I sit here and I pretend to do something. I leave lots of time between those repetitions. That is more effective than doing 10 reps quickly all in a row, and your dog will totally understand that whatever you're doing is predicting the good stuff. So it makes it very clear to them. So go slow. Just do 2 or 3 repetitions at a time, maybe 2 or 3 times a day, and it will go quickly. You'll be surprised, and the more you do, the faster it'll start to go. So what I'm going to do is we're going to move on to, in the videos, we're going to move on to handling the feet. And when I'm handling the feet, it's hard for people to really see that, but I'm putting a lot of pressure in. I'm going to start, I'm going to use Rosie because we haven't done much of this with her and she hates having her feet handled. So you'll see that I'm not going to do it for long or much in the beginning. Again, I'm going to build, I have to work with the dog, judge her response, do what she can feel good about, and we'll do the feet, and then we will move on to, and you can do the feet now, actually. You can, even if your dog isn't totally conditioned to love the Dremel, you can separate those two out at this point, because we're not putting the Dremel with the feet. They can be two totally separate training experiences for your dog. So you can start working on the feet now. That's not going to ruin the experience. And one little tip that I used, and I think it really helped me when I got down to the clippers, and I think it's really helping with the Dremel too, is that I took a lot of, I conditioned my dog to other pieces of equipment as well that were not so invasive. So I definitely use these a lot because I've got really furry dogs. They have really furry feet, which is a problem with the Dremel. So I just started trimming the hair on their feet while I was conditioning them to have their feet handled. That's really easy. Nobody cares about having their fur trimmed. It's not a scary experience. And the other really useful thing that I got was I got one of these nail files off Amazon. It's called a diamond nail file. It doesn't wear out. It's not very expensive. So once my dogs are okay with me playing with their toes and handling their feet and holding with a firm grip, I just started with the nail file. The beauty of the nail file was I couldn't do any damage, so I didn't feel anxiety-ridden about it. My dogs didn't feel anxiety-ridden about it, but it got them used to having something, touching their toes and moving along with their toes. So you don't have to jump right up to a Dremel. When we get to that point, you don't have to jump right up to a Dremel or a pair of clippers. You can, take some intermediate steps, even, a nail brush and just rub it across their feet. You can use more neutral items with your dog just to get them to used to lots of different things on their feet. So there's a practical tip. For anybody that is looking specifically for nail clippers or Dremels, these are, and again, I'm not a groomer. I'm speaking from experience of a dog owner who's just researched some information on the internet. I bought these from Wren's. I think they're called Miller's Forge. They're very sharp, and they're just they're small, but you don't need big clippers. So I found that these really small, sharp ones were really great. And I think you can order those from Wren's for about $11 or $12. And the Dremel, I have a few of my friends and students who have ordered Dremels for this series. You can order this from Walmart right now, actually, and I think they have curbside pickup, and I think this is available online. This is about $35. So this is a Dremel 7300. I think on Walmart it says something about pet groomer on it. It's a pet grooming tool. So there's just some useful information on where to get some tools. And again, the nail file I got from, I just ordered on Amazon.ca. It's called Diamond File. I think it's Safari brand. So that was really inexpensive as well. So if anybody has any questions, I will take a look in the comment section and I will answer everybody's questions. And so if you have any kind of questions, please do post them. We want people to be able to do this. We want them to be successful at it. We're not sure when anybody's going to get back to work, and it is important for your dog's health that they do get their nails groomed because it does affect how they move and how they plant their feet. We're happy to help in any way. If anybody wants to do a phone call with me or even a Zoom consult, I'm more than happy to do a short consult, one-to-one if you don't want to put your questions up on Facebook. Or if you want to send me a video of what you're doing, you can email that to me and I'd be happy to look at it and make some suggestions. So it's a good thing to be able to do your dog's nails. It's a good thing to build that trust between you and your dog, so you can both be successful, and it carries over into a lot of other areas. You know, if you ever have your dog's ever afraid of anything else in life, you will know as a result of going through this experience how to deal with that, and I think that's important for everybody. So again, if you have any questions, post them. I would love to see, and if you have any pictures of it being successful, I'd love for you guys to put those up in the comments as well. You know, we put this information out there. I'm never sure how many people it works for, who has success, so it would be it'd be encouraging for me and for all the other people who are doing this if we saw some success stories. So please post those in the comments as well, or anybody can post on Games That Train. Anybody can put up a post, that would be great. So good luck everybody, and stay safe. Thanks a lot.